Hey friends, Graham here from therecordingrevolution.com, and today let's talk about snare drums in your mix, especially if you want to get a fatter, bigger snare drum. I want to show you the snare hype technique. It's a real simple thing you can do if you feel like you're tweaking your EQ, tweaking your compression on the snare, and it's not quite hitting hard enough, especially if you have aggressive music. Here's a song where the snare drum was working okay, if I get it the right level here. It sounds fine in the but then in the chorus it's still a little small. It's not bad. I think I got a good snare sound. That's part of what I want to show you. This isn't replacing a snare. This is enhancing a snare. So it sounded fine, but I heard on the chorus when it's loud right there, the snare sounds small and choked. Doesn't have a lot of fat sustain. And then in the verse, the snare sounded a little too thin. Again, not bad, but here's a way to really enhance it a bit. I take a simple send. That's how I like to do it. A pre-fader send to send a full volume copy of that snare drum to a new track. You can also literally copy the audio track. It's the same thing. And now I've got a track called Snare Hype that if I just solo this, in theory, it's just a copy of the snare. But what we're going to do is go crazy on the processing on this track. So I decided to do a few things. This looks a little wonky. The great thing about this process is that you can experiment like crazy and you can be extreme. I'm all about subtlety, and that's something that's so important in mixing, but sometimes I get tired of being subtle. And so if you're doing something in parallel, this is what we're doing with the snare hype track, you can go wild. So I've got a couple of things that are cranked. I've got the Slate new custom series lift plugin, which I don't know what it does. I just turned these two knobs and it does interesting stuff. So I took the knob on the low lift and set it to big and I cranked it all the way up to add more bigness. I took revival and I cranked up thickness as far as it'll go. I cranked up shimmer as far as it'll go. These are harmonic exciters, so I'm adding saturation and harmonics to the signal. I have his Neve EQ where I've taken the top end and cranked it up with a boost on the shelf. And then I also have a 3K boost like crazy to add some crunch to it. And also a low shelf boost at 146 that's pumped up with a little bit of high pass so that I'm not bumping up too much of the low lows. This is some extreme boosting. This is as opposite as I usually am. I trimmed it down a bit because it was getting loud. And then I compressed it a bit with an 1176. And so take a listen to what all 5 of these things are doing to the snare. Right, huge transformation. This doesn't sound anything like the snare, and it sounds really processed because it is. So the goal here was to just get fatter tone and sustain, which I'm using the harmonics and the compressor to get that, and then also more crack and sizzle. And I'm using all the hyped boosting EQ here on the Neve, the FGM, which sounds really cool. And so this super fat yet super hype and super not overly pleasing sound is a little too much. I mean, it's a lot too much. But that's what I'm going to now blend in with the other snare together. So bring it in. Right, thickens it up, hypes it up, and then we can listen to it in context with the band. So you get a much fuller sound, and you can obviously tailor that to your liking. So you can either blend in more of the snare hype or less of the snare hype. You can blend in more in the chorus and less in the verse, or vice versa. If it's nice and fat in the verse, but in the chorus there's so much going on, you don't want the snare to be that big of a sonic hog, you can bring it down a bit so your snare is a little smaller, a little more contained. So hopefully that gives you something to work through. It's a very, very helpful trick. We're just processing something and able to do extreme processing, super EQ boosts on the low end and the top end, harmonic additions, all those good things, and then blend that to taste with your snare. Hope that gives you something to think about on your next mix. Subscribe to the videos if you like them. Always appreciate it, and I hope you're making some great music this weekend. I'll see you on another video soon. Take care.